And good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sizzling in Mississippi, exclusively at WeBelieveDigital.com. We're so glad to have you joining us tonight. Chris Young, alongside my co-host Maati, Jone, Primm. How are you this evening, Maati?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
I am doing great. You look amazing as always, and you have a special guest to introduce tonight.
We do indeed. It's a man who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. Yes, this is Brother Kareem Muhammad. And what can I say about you? I could talk for an hour. You have a very long resume. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Okay, thank you. Once again, I would just like to say to the viewing audience, I'm Brother Kareem Muhammad. I'm with the local organizing committee. I'm a grassroots organizer. I've been organizing for over 57 years throughout the country, so I'm just honored to be here today.
Wonderful. We're so glad to have you. And, you know, Maati and I get together on the phone midway through the day on Mondays and kind of talk a little bit about what we want to speak about, focus on what our topics are going to be. And I had come across an article in the Mississippi Today newspaper having to do with Issaquena County. And as soon as I started speaking, she said, I want to get Brother Kareem over here because he know about that. So should we just kick off with that?
Sure.
So you know what they had to say. And this is a newspaper, and I can't give the entire article, of course, but, it's just another example of the sizzling going on in Mississippi, because Mississippi Today reported that Issaquena County's population has one of the lowest rates of educational attainment in America, a result of generations of decisions that favored powerful, largely white land interests over education and jobs. They say the median income up there, and we're really talking about 53 miles or something from Jackson, I would say, median income of $24,000. And what was remarkable to the reporters, no schools and no kids. They didn't see kids run around. They say there's about 1,100 plus people in the county. And they estimate that 42 of that 1,100 plus people age 25 and older have a bachelor's degree. 42 people, meaning Issaquena County's population has one of the lowest rates of educational attainment in America. They went on to speak a little bit about the Civil War, which I know this is not going to be new news for you. They say by the end of the Civil War, a vast majority of the nearly 100 farm operators in Issaquena owned enslaved people who made up 93% of the population, the highest percentage of any county in Mississippi. And then they spoke to this man named George, and I'm just going to spell it first, MAHALITC. So George Mahalik is one of the county's major employers. They say he hires tractor drivers, mechanics, and workers for the cotton gin that he owns with his brothers just over the county line in Washington County. All told, he employs 30 people. He said it's getting harder to do. And then hear what this man had to say. He said, we're not big on we don't want to see a bigger population. We like things just the way they are. What needs to happen is people need to get off their lazy tails and want to go to work. Our government is subsidizing paying these people to sit at home. That's the problem. Now, to read that, in 1950 would shock no one. But to read that in 2023, saying words like that, when your educational base, which can potentially lead to growth and prosperity, is so low, the lowest in the country, to me, it's just another example of sizzling in Mississippi. What say you, good sir?
I mean, as I was listening to your article, and I appreciate you for putting it out there. Of course, I reflected back on this is not new. I mean, you refer back to 1865, and if we go back and reflect back on the mindset of 1865, it was the same mindset, even it was what it is now. In the sense, from this perspective, is that the southern states that had so-called quote lost the war mindset was that was what the argument was with the North and the South was about education. That was one of the major pieces. The Northern one that wanted to come down there, Stevenson and Sumter, Charles Sumter, and they wanted to come down, and their objective was to educate the blacks because they feel the capitalist industrial complex believed that by educating the labor force would cause, and this was their study that they did back in then, it would cause better job efficiency and all of that. So they believed they wanted to educate. The southern states did not want to do that. And so this was some of the mindset that they had in regards to that educating our people back then was that they were lazy. One of the major pieces, and this comes out of W. Du Bois's book, The Black Reconstruction, right? And it said in there was that black people, what they need to do is they're lazy, they are not going to work. And one of the persons said, which was, if we educate the blacks, then that would be the demise of whites.
Right.
So they understood that by educating us and putting us on a certain level, their culture, as they called it back then, which was white supremacy and domination of black as well, would lose. And so they never wanted to educate our people. And so now you're looking at this here, 2023, in the same mindset. We're not surprised. Some may be surprised, but many of us are not surprised with that mindset. And then when you look at the conditions of our people, you're talking about an education system, not in just that area there, but in the whole state of Mississippi. Education system is still the same because the same mindset, that same 1892 Constitution that they put together is still produced, whereas they designed a Constitution that would keep them in power today. So it's not who the body, but it's the mindset that we're trying to. And when you look at the conditions of our people, you're talking about education system in Mississippi that has a D or F rating in some parts of the state. And so, I mean, it was like that then. You had
and that doesn't even, and I notice, this, the newer form of segregation, charter schools, and those guys are turning in grades that are the same as the public school system.
Right.
But they're sucking money every time they give a voucher to one of these approved charter schools. They suck a certain number of thousands of dollars per pupil per year out of the public schools to put it into a charter school, which gives them not complete segregation, but pretty close.
Right.
But the net result, just like you said, they're getting D's and F's, C's, D's, and F's, just like in the public schools.
Well, it's just like the private schools that came about when they desegregated the public schools. All of a sudden
Segregation academies.
Right, all these segregation academies that are still functioning.
Yeah.
And how are they being funded?
Right.
Same thing.
And even when you're talking about charter schools, our 47 years ago when we were first addressing that, it wasn't called charter schools. They turned it in there for control. It was called choice.
Yeah.
And it was the same concept that they used that you was talking about during the 1950s with the Europeans, that they wanted the choice of educating their children away from us. And so our choice was that we wanted to take our children and put them into a school setting that would be adequate enough to educate our people. And so if it was a school setting that we wanted, then we wanted to be able to take the money that the state is paying to those schools that are not teaching us and say, allow us the opportunity. And so that's where the voucher part, but they took it and turned it into what is called charter, which is a negative concept and is not working for us in our school system.
Yeah, and so it just persists. And I mean, that was just one story about one county. But Maati raised a flag for her right away because you're a real authority on all that history and everything.
Yeah, but again, when we're talking about the education system, and I just want to put this out here, when we did a survey about 3 years ago, we was dealing with it. It came from the prison industrial complex, and we was looking at it. The only A rating of the state, when they're talking about state institutions, healthcare, education, and Department of Correction, the only institution that got an A rating was the Department of Correction.
Wow.
It's hard to believe. And that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, that's about the time the crazy man came up from, what was it, Louisiana?
Burrow Kane from Angola.
From Angola.
Yes.
Prison in Louisiana.
Maybe the worst reputation in the whole country, right?
Next to Parchment.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I mean, Parchment and Angola are just hand in hand,
Yeah.
and they just put a chill through anybody.
Did you see just a few days ago where they relieved the head of the women's, I'll mess up the name, but it's the prison specifically for women. And they removed this black superintendent that had been in there for a couple of years. No comment. We can't comment on personnel issues. Gone.
Yeah.
Poof like that.
Yeah.
And her bio, and she had come so highly recommended, had come up through the system, was the ideal candidate for that position.
Yeah.
And then poof, quick like a bunny in the dead of night, and the next morning there's a different face on the website.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to say a word what happened.
Yeah.
But again, when you're talking about the education system, in the mindset of those that are controlling the business of the economy, they do not want to. I know I was talking once with the congressman, and he was talking about he wanted to put a military complex in the Delta so it can create jobs. Those individuals from the Gulf, those are business people there, they didn't want it because they knew that it would take away from their labor. It would pull them out the fields. And so the same concept is still there in the South still feels the same way. To educate us is to ruin, quote unquote, a good end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they come from, on the one hand, I say they come, just my thought, they come from a place of ignorance and fear. But then again, you said something earlier about they know
That's right.
they don't want to put themselves out of any kind of power. So
Right.
maybe it's not so much ignorance.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
There's some savvy mixed in there.
Absolutely.
It's like in the late 70s, early 80s or something like that. One of those critters over there at that Capitol building had the foresight to write it into the code about that horrible statue that's in front of the. We've talked about this before,
Yeah.
Maati. That CSA statue.
Yes.
That's in front of the Capitol building.
Right.
And, because obviously since George Floyd and all, so
Right.
many of these monuments have been moved,
Right.
relocated, taken down, however you want to say it.
Right.
That one can't be touched.
Right. See, they also said, the governor said, when George Floyd was murdered, and many different municipalities and states were taking down these horrible Confederate States of America statues, he said not one of them would come down in Mississippi.
And proud of that.
And,
Yes.
then we have to think about the aspect of, are we talking about symbolism
Right.
or what?
Yeah.
Because the question is asked, if you take the statue down, does the ideal that created the statue go down? Because the statue is just a symbol of an ideal.
Sure.
And so, you can take a statue down, but if you do not destroy the mindset of white superiority, then the statue does not have to be there to continue on. And that's what we're looking at today, is that we are seeing a continuation of an idea of white superiority in this country, especially in the state of Mississippi. And that's what we're suffering up under right now.
And we saw too, again, you saw, even though the election's long gone over with now, the Republican Party in Mississippi is petitioning the Supreme Court over the fact that they allowed the Hinds County which was having troubles that day with ballots. There was a shortage of ballots at numerous Hinds County polling stations, 9 or 10 or 13 polling stations, and the results are over, but the Republican Party is challenging that judge that allowed 1 extra hour of he allowed the voting to stay open till 8 p.m. Instead of 7 p.m., petitioned by the Democrats to do that because there had been some mix-up with some ballots, so just to allow people a little bit of extra time. And right now, they're challenging that.
And even though many people were turned away anyway because they ran out of official ballots.
Yeah.
So, and the Republicans aren't saying anything about that.
No, and do you think they'd be doing that in Tupelo? Do you think they'd be doing that in Biloxi or
Right.
or Meridian?
Right.
You know,
Or Starkville.
but in Hinds,
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It's just the opportunity to still try to appear as if the voting structure is not right.
yeah.
That's all it is. Just applaud. They know that this is the mechanism by which they stay in power. I want to go back, if you would, back to what you said about the ignorance of the people. And there was an ignorance in that, but that was with the white labor force at that time. And that is how the corporate American industrial complex, they utilized that ignorant class to use to go against the black labor force. For them to believe that the black labor force was the problem and not the industrial issue, which was causing the problem of free labor and all of that. And so, but when we're talking about, you use the word fear. In the capitalist society, they do have a fear. They have a fear of losing control, and that's a fear that they've always had, is that white labor force marrying on with the black labor force and creating a union that would destroy them.
And this is going to tie into that other question, Maati, that we talked about, which was which is worse, lies or silence. Right. But we're come up on the first end of this first segment now. So let's dip out for a couple of commercials, and then we'll be right back with you to keep on rolling with this program.
Hey, have you heard about the Accountable Card? It's more than a card. It's a complete mobile banking service that's accountable to all of us. You'll get a no credit check debit card good anywhere Visa is accepted to make purchases, deposits, even get or transfer cash with an FDIC insured bank account managed from our smartphone app. There's even a pre-approved no interest line of credit if you need emergency cash. So why go to the bank when you can have ours in your pocket? Get accountable. Just download our app today.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Welcome back, everybody, to Sizzling in Mississippi. We're so glad that you're joining us. You know, we can be viewed easily on YouTube, on Facebook, on WeBelieveDigital.com. Love to have you around. Just a reminder, we now have We Believe Digital Radio. We're currently going live streaming radio around the clock. With music right now, and in the making some plans for some radio shows coming up in the new year. So right now we got Southern Soul and Gospel and Blues and going around the clock, starting to put in a little bit of advertising. So we're really trying to expand and broaden the base here of this black-centric media company, We Believe Digital. So we're so glad to have you join us. Maati and Karim, you know, we've been talking about this goon squad over there in Rankin County, you know, and the judge, they postponed the sentencing for these 6 guys that pleaded guilty. Now, and I have the good fortune of running into a couple of very senior retired justices, and they just can't believe that these guys pleaded. They said they never seen anything like it in their lifetimes. They never seen anything like to have 6 white law enforcement plead guilty. But they said they need to have more time to review the pre-sentencing reports and what their objections might be and stuff. So, but this U.S. District Judge Tom Lee has rescheduled the hearing. So this guy, it started on January 16th and goes through the 19th. Hunter Elward, Jeffrey Middleton gets sentenced on January 16th. Christian Dedman and Daniel, is it Updike, gets sentenced on the 18th. Joshua Hartfield, now he's the one that was the Richland police officer, not the Rankin County sheriff.
Right.
But he just one of the group that they must have been like first cousins or something. So he'll get sentenced on the 19th, and Brett McAlpin also on January 19th. So we just wanted to update that story to you a little bit. We'll be taking a little bit of a break over the holidays, but we'll bring that to you as soon as we hear about it when that happens.
Yeah.
Well, if I may,
course.
we were pleased, if we may say so, in regards to the indictment and the arrest, even though it took 6 months in our demonstration to make it happen. But we were pleased from the sense that we knew we had some control and some influence over that.
And you were instrumental in bringing in the Division of Civil Rights.
Yes, absolutely. And so we were pleased of the indictment and the arrest. However, with the family, they asked us that what did they want when we first started. They wanted those individuals off the street so that they wouldn't continue to psychologically and physically terrorize the community. But when you're talking about the plea bargaining aspect, we wasn't too pleased about that. And you asked the question, why? Well, one of the reasons is that when you're talking about a plea bargaining, then now we are not in control of that. That's behind closed doors. There's compensation that's going on, and we don't know really what's going on. So we have a campaign that's going out, and this is another reason why the sentencing was set aside for another time. It's because of our campaign to say that we want maximum sentencing for the maximum crime.
Right.
We don't want to victimize the families again. Can you imagine that if those individuals that go to prison, and they may go to prison for 2 or 3 years, but those individuals that are in prison that they have sent to prison unlawfully, and they go to prison, spend 2 or 3 years, and then they come out, but those that are in prison and innocent, they are still in prison.
Right. For much longer period.
For much longer.
Right.
And so we are saying that now we want the maximum sentencing for the maximum crime. And we'll talk about Lion Brown Bill in a minute.
Right. And there was another article too about that thing with his girlfriend.
Yes.
Yeah, and using state resources. And so many people, and this is the thing that Maati and I speak about often, is that so many people, like with the whole goon squad to start with, have you heard one elected official in Rankin County say one word about it? Have you heard one elected state official say one, not a word?
And again, that's what we're trying to say, is that we know silence is acceptance. And so they are not going to speak against one another. What they're really afraid of is how much of what's coming out is going to expose them. That is another reason why we didn't agree with the plea bargaining, because we wanted jury trial.
Right.
We wanted all the evidence to come out. We wanted those individuals to be actually charged with hate crime.
Right.
Yeah. How compelling was the evidence against the goon squad?
Oh my God! When we first went in there in July, I think it was, on August. August the 7th. We first went in there, and we thought that they were just going to go in there and plead guilty, and they might even went back home. But when they revealed what they had exposed, we didn't even know that it was called a goon squad.
Yeah.
First of all,
Yes.
we didn't know that they had told the story, that they had stood in the back room and actually compiled how to hide and cover up shooting Michael in the mouth. We didn't know that they had stole some items out of Michael Parker's home. They still in the weights out of the man's home, taking him into their car. We didn't know that they had decided to have a throwaway gun that one of the lieutenant had in his car that he was going to use, but they decided to use a pellet gun that was found in the house as to be the throwdown gun.
Right.
So those are just a few of some of the evidence that came out that surprised us. It didn't surprise me.
And they run around with coins in their pockets, say the Goon Squad on the, challenge coins kind of thing.
And that is the connection to Bailey right there.
There you go.
That Goon Squad piece, because Bailey came from Simpson County, and from there, his officer, the one that was leading over him, the commander, was called Goon. And that is where the Goon Squad came from. So he brought that concept to Rankin County.
And you notice not a word from any of these aldermen that pay the salaries, right?
Right.
And and even when he got them to be using county resources, tried to use state resources to investigate his the girlfriend stepping out, I guess, and he wanted proof of that, and. Even the congressman now, Michael Guest, who they've been buddies for a long time, according to different articles I've looked at recently, he stepped away from it and he saw it was too hot, and he said, that there was too many conflicts of interest since he had known him, so he didn't want to get involved at all. But that doesn't mean he wasn't involved years and years ago.
Right. Yeah.
And when the New York Times sends these people down here, and they combine with that Mississippi Center for Investigative Reporting, that Jerry Mitchell group, and over at Mississippi Today. Now they're housed over at Mississippi Today, and they said minimum of 20 years of this behavior going on.
Minimum of 20 years.
So, and we reported earlier. I know I did a story in the Mississippi Link maybe 6 to 8 weeks or so ago. It started out with a picture of Brian Bailey's sheriff car, which is a 1950s automobile. Why you? What's the point of having that out in front of the sheriff's office? A 1950 wood-paneled, because you want people to think this is the good old boys here.
That's what it is. It's a symbol. Symbolism.
More symbolic.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about that Sheriff Bailey again, we have not let up off of what the family, and that's what we want to make it understood, is that these are the demands of the family.
Right.
The family, and when you said about 20 years of this, can you imagine how many bodies that's unaccounted for?
Phenomenal.
How many individuals that are in prison based on, because they was going to send Michael Jenkins to prison had Eddie Parker not spoke up. And so how many individuals are there in prison like that now? And so we're not letting up, and Brian Bailey that said he didn't know what's going on, well, now we have an investigating that's coming down now, and they're going through that total county, and they're going to expose a lot of things that's going on. And
not just the sheriff. They're looking deeper than the sheriff's office, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they need to.
And that's when when people start recognizing that they're going to be exposed, that's why they didn't want a trial.
Yeah.
Yes.
See? Yeah. That's why they did. But these officers are realizing now, you're getting ready to throw me up under the bus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not ready for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Their parents, their family members know that they're being scapegoated.
Right.
So if we press enough and show them a way out, we want the top.
Do you know by chance, Brother Kareem, about the affidavits that were Angela English for Rankin NAACP had people signing? Do you know if that got enough traction, if there were enough signatures to, because he ran unopposed and was reelected,
right?
But do you know if there's, as far as signatures to ask the Board of Aldermen to fire him or what? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it's not the Board of Aldermen. You have those signatures are taken to take it to the Attorney General and the governor.
Governor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
and so it takes 30,000 signatures,
Sheesh.
and of course if it's 30. Well, I just told you, 1892 they designed all that so they can stay in office.
Sure.
Right. And it's 30,000 of residents in Rankin County
Yes.
who are registered voters.
Right.
Now, how do you get that?
How do you get that? And we talked about last week, wasn't
Right,
it?
right.
That there were, 6,000 write-ins
Right.
because there was nobody against him on the ballot,
Exactly.
which I thought was, considering everything I've heard about Rankin County, I
Right.
thought that was kind of high.
Right.
And then another 5,000 they said were not legible, so they couldn't give credit. One,
Yeah.
you know,
One way or the other.
that's a
But-
farce. 5,000 not
Yeah.
legible.
And so again, you asked the question, how do you make that happen? And again, one of the experiences that we found, the history, we found the way to deal with the enemy of white supremacy, get them at their pocket. Hit them in their pocket. And so if you keep the heat up in Rankin County, this is the Christmas period, season, right? So if they know that they're not going to be able to shop easy without no demonstration, if they know that they're not going to sleep easy without no demonstration, if they know that by demonstrating is going to allow, they got a real good, I think, Christmas display over there that people are coming over there. If the people are not going to be able to get over there peacefully without some demonstrations and it's going to cut their money back, then they'll start to give them some demands. But if we just sit back and wait on them to make a decision, it's not going to happen like that. But Brian Bailey is going. We're
Just a
gonna-
matter of time.
It's just a matter of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Because the pressure
Yes.
we're putting on is continuous.
Yes.
And we're
Yes.
not giving up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So at some point, he will have to leave.
And this is a new day. See, this is the whole key component of what we got to understand. This is not 1964.
Right.
This is not 1963 neither.
Right.
This is a whole new generation of individuals that they just don't know how to do it, but it's something that they know need to be done. And the courts know that as well. And so again, it's the economic aspect. If we deal with from the economic perspective of stopping those centers over there for bringing in concerts and going across this country and letting those individuals know this is how it happened in the turn of the century. Is the sentiments from lynching and others changed because they believed that international influence and monetary losses was coming about, so they began to say, you're going to make our city look bad, so don't lynch them here. They didn't say don't lynch them.
Right.
They just said don't lynch them in our county.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So if people demonstrated outside that Brandon amphitheater, when they bring in big talents,
Yes.
that could be effective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
in front of Brian Bailey House?
Yeah. I mean, but you know, when you look at people like Derek Chauvin, right?
Yes.
That's what happened to him.
Yes.
People protested right in front of his home, and then they wrote in chalk on his driveway, murderer. Yeah. So we see what's going on with him. Even though he, you know, did all of these things, they were trying to accommodate him and put him in. He decided he wanted to go to Arizona. Now I'm sure he wish he hadn't of. He was stabbed 22 times there.
And what it was really
22. And the person, the inmate who did it said if the guards hadn't gotten there in the time that they did, he had planned to kill him. That's the only reason why he didn't kill him, was just he didn't have time enough to do it. You know. So now we see these type of things happening. I'm wondering about the goon squad, because one thing I'm wondering about are the details. Why and how was Michael Jenkins shot in the mouth?
Well, when you say how, you mean what the evidence came out to show that they was playing Russian roulette with him. It was intimidation and terrorism what they were doing. They
A
were,
one-way Russian roulette.
yeah, they was taking it and sticking it in his mouth and telling him, bite down on it, and they was pulling the trigger. And so what happened was that with that magnum that they used, some say that he didn't know it was a bullet in the chamber. You know, we say he just got hyped,
Right.
and that trigger went off.
Right.
And that second time, it shot Michael in the mouth.
Wow.
Yes.
And ricocheted, right? Did the bullet ricochet or did it go?
Went out the side of his jaw or something.
Yeah.
We know that was only the God that was in there
Right.
to allow that, because if he had not lived, we might not be here right now.
Right. Right.
You see, and so that was terrorism when you're talking about how did it happen.
Yes.
They was terrorizing them, and the whole, and that's why we're talking about this hate crime, because that was the whole objective of them going to their apartment in the first place, because they wanted those black men to get out of Rankin County because they had been quote unquote involved with their purely white girl.
Right. Yeah, and they told them they're on the wrong side of the river for that.
And if that ain't 1864, 1865, 1888,
Yeah.
Mississippi, if that's not the same language,
Yeah. Yes.
Have you gotten to meet Ben Crump yet?
I've met him on other occasions, but not here recently. I have not.
Well, he's shaming. This. Now we said last week, Maati, about Mario Moore.
Yes.
You know, when WLBT run that homicide tracker thing, but when the police doesn't report these homicides,
Right.
so there was 24 of them that they held at bay, talking about it was a miscommunication. Wink, wink.
Wow.
And Mario Moore, a 40-year-old man, was one of those, deceased and buried without the knowledge. His mother, Marquita Moore, told NBC News she saw her 40-year-old brother's name on the list of 24, all who died without Jackson police notifying their families. Moore's family has retained civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, who also worked the Dexter Wade case.
Yes.
Benjamin Crump says shame on Jackson Police Department.
Yes. What kind of shakeup do we anticipate with the Jackson Police Department? I mean, we just hired a new chief.
Right. And were those two things connected? Was the timing of these 24 names being withheld, and then poof, quick like a bunny, we got a new police chief. Did those things go together at all?
I don't know. Truth may come out on that. We can find out.
Well, with me, I look at it from this perspective, is that if those were European families, a press conference would have long been. They'd been out speaking to the press, talking about that, apologizing, talking about steps by steps of procedures to make sure it never happens again.
Right.
There's not been no press conferences.
But the majority of now here's what we can go down into the rabbit hole a little bit. But the majority of Jackson PD patrol officers are black.
96%.
But again, we're talking about 1892 Constitution.
And now I
we're
know
talking
why
about policy and structure.
Right, the structure. The structure.
Yeah.
Ideology, not the statute.
Right.
Yeah.
And I knew because Maati's taken me, as I protest about she schooled me so many times about that.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew that's where we were going.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned that. That story was in The Root. If anybody wants to look that up, there's much more than I've shared here. If you go to The Root, you can look that up. There's another story too. There's three more things we got on the list here, and trying to get. I guess we better break out now for this last break, and then we'll come back for our final segment. So we'll be right back, folks.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Welcome back, everybody, to Sizzling in Mississippi. We're so glad you're joining us. We have a little motto underneath our title, Black Woman and White Man at the Crossroads. And Maati just reminded me that we've been at this for a full year now. So it's amazing how time flies. But
Yes.
and we watch the views increase over time, sometimes dip a little down, sometime get back up there. We see the clips, the shorter
shorts.
clips.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of views.
And thousands
and
even.
thousands sometimes
Yes.
on the clips.
Yes.
So we're so glad you're supporting us, and so glad we're giving you content that you can appreciate. We're just trying to keep it real, not roll any punches. You know, one quick story. We really got two main things I want to get into, but one little quick thing. I just noticed today from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the most recent 12-month employment growth in Mississippi, zip, nada. Now, I remember just a month ago hearing this governor wanting to be reelected,
Right.
telling everybody that Mississippi got momentum.
Yes.
He say it's Mississippi's time. Zero employment growth.
Yeah.
And all around us. Now look, Arkansas, 0.9, but it's something.
Right.
Alabama and Tennessee, both at 1.2% employment growth.
Yes.
Arkansas, I think I just, and Louisiana,
Yeah,
2.2%. And there's only one state in the country that's worse for employment growth right now, and that is somehow the state of Rhode Island. And we joke about that.
The itty bitty state.
When I was a kid, we'd be driving through there. It'd take about 18 minutes to drive from one side of the state to the other. So yeah, it's just, but again, the concept of here you have an incumbent governor just lying through his teeth, talking about the prosperity here and Mississippi's rebuilding and we've got momentum and now is our time, and just this frothy kind of emotional appeal. It's all lies. It's not true.
Well, I don't know if it's lies and if it's not true. It's just who he's talking to.
Oh, to the base.
Right.
So that dovetails right in to the next topic. Okay. Okay. So, and this is tough because I found, and maybe this is for another day, Maati, I don't know, but I saw this. It kind of cracks me up when I see NBC Black, because on the one hand, you want to give them credit for creating a division that focuses on black issues.
Right.
On the other hand, you got to scroll way down
Okay,
to get
find
to
it.
it.
Okay.
To find it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but it's about how ex-Confederates spread racist attitudes far and wide after the Civil War. And it really ends up being, a piece about systemic racism and about how it's not just Mississippi and Alabama and, it's all over the place now. And there's some information I can share on that, but I'm really tempted with the time we have left to get to this big question that we've really spoken to a little bit already, which is worse, lies or silence? And I found a quote that I didn't know you'd be here, Brother Kareem, but I found a quote from, of all people, Leonardo da Vinci.
I'm interested.
Nothing strengthens authority so much as silence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that quote.
They practice that.
Yes.
They practice that silence. But then, of course, we hear, Martin Luther King say, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter.
Yes.
So, we see a combination of these two things. We see a combination of lies and silence going on here in Mississippi. We see elected officials that, we have a welfare scandal.
Yes.
The TANF program is a federal safety net providing multi-millions of dollars to all 50 states. Why do they do that? Because they know darn well that the states are not going to take as good care of poor people as they should.
Right.
So the feds step in
Yes.
using taxpayer money
Right.
under two Republican governors and their appointees. They steal Now, another word is pilfer. The word I like least is when they say misspent, because that seems like soft pedaling.
Yes.
You know, but upwards of $94 million.
Yes.
Tell me
Looted.
the name of one elected official that has spoken out on that issue. Republicans.
They don't want. Yeah, they don't want to talk about it.
The Democrats have held 2 hearings so far.
Yeah.
They promised a third by the end of this year, but I don't see that happening.
No, I don't either.
But not one person is saying a word about it. And Brother Kareem Maati and I found out through the Greta Kemp Martin, who ran for Attorney General, who was a guest on our show. We found out that out of 300 employees in the Attorney General's office, about 150 of them are attorneys. And that they're the ones that should be prosecuting.
Yes.
But instead, they're making the taxpayers pay twice by hiring outside counsel. And in the meantime, nobody's saying a word about it.
Yeah.
So that silence, what does that silence mean in the context of Sizzling in Mississippi? What does that context mean in the context of character or justice or equality?
Again, I reflect back. Elijah Muhammad teaches us history is best to reward our research. And so when I think about what you just said, I go back to say to myself about the 1980s and the 1990s and the making of mass incarceration, right? And that it was the Democrats and the Republicans that came together to make that. They took money and stole money from those social welfare organizations. At that time, they closed down mental institutions and education systems to build prisons.
And that even went on under Clinton.
My point. And so, irregardless of whether we say that the governor of Mississippi stole some money or the Republican Party and the Democratic came together to steal some money and take the money and put it in prison industrial complex, take the money and pay more law enforcement so that they can contain and maintain and keep those private industries, prisons, filled up, then the sense that comes with, from the silence, from my perspective, is the silence is with the community. Because we got to stand up and make a stand to demand some type of change ourselves.
And what's the mechanism? Again, Maati and I have spoken about that. She has schooled me many, many times, and she's always is perturbed the right word, that we have to have outside people coming in our community to get us motivated to do things. What mechanism, Brother Kareem, what has to happen to motivate our people to stand up for ourselves?
Well, again, I think that Don Elijah Muhammad taught us that dissatisfaction brings about change. And so when you're looking in the community and you see the dissatisfaction that's going on, then the community, from an economic perspective, they're going to either come with a change or this whole system is going to be torn down and it's going to be rebuilt back up one way or the other. But we are at what you say, y'all, crossroad.
Yeah.
We at the crossroad of change. It's just whether or not the change is going to be done through tearing this system down through brutality, or is it going to be done through us organizing? And so what's got to happen again is that as a people, we got to come together and begin to identify some mechanisms that will begin to change. And we know, we go back to the 1865 and the 1870s, what came about as a change was when the black politicians came together with some white politicians and began to start and open up school systems.
Right.
And they began to educate the schools. Those individuals that was ready and wanted to be educated. Our people today want to be educated. It's just the school system is not engaging them into something that would interest them. So we got to change the school system. We got to also begin to talk about economics and how are we going to, from a collective perspective, begin to change the economic. It was Amos Webster said these words, is that White America cannot change Black America's problem when they were the cause of the problem. We got to change our own.
Well, it takes, with the history of Mississippi, it does take pressure from outside. You know, because we see where we have a new volleyball building on the campus of Southern Mississippi. Now that's something that we can put our hands on. You know, the trainer for the governor being given $1 million.
Right.
All of these type of things. It has to be a national disgrace that causes pressure to come down on Mississippi.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that three of us who are talking about this, none of us were born here. Yeah, we're considered, all three of us are considered outsiders.
And when a lot of the coverage, when
Yeah.
you mentioned the two examples of the TANF scandal,
Yes.
a lot of the coverage that I see nationally, they jump in, they hit a couple quick points, and they're long gone.
Right, right.
There's not an in-depth
Right.
expose
Exactly.
that's going to sort of create a foundation for that. What did you say? Not embarrassment, but
But a pressure to come down, it should be considered a national disgrace.
Disgrace.
For tax money to go to the two items that we just talked about.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, to use the taxpayer money again to prosecute, which it looks
Right.
like it ain't going to be everybody. It's just
Yeah.
going to be some of the people involved.
Yeah, and maybe not even them.
But when
Right.
you mentioned the Jackson Police Department being majority of Blacks, and it's the same way as with our community as well, is that the system has gotten us to the point where they used to, 100 years ago or so, lynch us.
Yes.
They used to, 100 years ago, murder us.
Yes.
Now we're murdering ourselves.
Right.
And we can talk about if a white officer kills one of us, there's a big protest. But when one of our own kill one of us, nothing is said.
Right.
And so we have to step back and recognize that we have a responsibility of going in the community and holding our own community accountable. And once we begin to do that, then we will hold the state and the country accountable. But first, our job is within our own community.
But you know, that said, I do see, like in the case in Memphis of Brother Nichols, who was murdered by police officers and black police officers, I do see unrest and a lot of protest in Memphis. Had that happened here, I don't see that would have happened. I don't see anything like that happening.
Even when Reverend Barber,
Right.
when he came 3 times with Pro
Right.
People campaign,
Right.
I mean, my estimate, I'm just one person, but the first time was the biggest turnout.
Sure, and it always reduces less and less
Yeah.
each time.
You got
That's
Mississippi.
typical.
Mississippi they ain't Mississippi now. You know, they say that you got the United States of America, then you got Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and so the people in Mississippi, it's a different breed here because of the conditions that they've had to live up under
So
for so
severe.
long.
Yeah.
You know, and when we talk about outside influence, we got to remember over 70% of those on the outside that come back got roots here.
Right.
So we're really not outside.
Right.
Right.
We just coming back home.
That's an interesting pattern because you see so many people that leave
Yeah.
and then come back.
Right.
And then come back
Right.
and raise families.
That's that dissatisfaction I was telling you about that's going to bring about a change.
It's amazing. Well,
You know, Mississippi has that reputation.
hmm
You know, I mean, even Lyndon Johnson said there's the South, there's the Deep South, and then there's Mississippi.
Right.
You know, what has 4 eyes but cannot see? Mississippi.
And Portsmouth Farm was designed,
Oh,
when you read the erection of Portsmouth Farm, it was designed to break the back
yes.
of the black man.
You're right. They had a sign outside the farm that said, well, it's not a farm, it's a plantation, and it's, you know, it's so indicative of enslavement, and it says, you know, either we break your spirit or we break you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the Goon Squad
Yes.
is the modern day version of those
Klan.
clans back then. It's
Yeah.
Thurgood Marshall said at one time that the clans used to wear white robes. He said now they're wearing black robes. What we are saying, they're wearing blue uniforms.
Yeah. And speaking of that, when you were saying something earlier, I know I'm going to be disjointed with this, but having to do with power and authority and our own communities and all. And we were speaking about JPD in terms of the number of black officers or what have you. But, in the meantime, while we struggle with our problems day in and day out here, these people installed a second police chief in Jackson, Mississippi, a white Capitol Police chief in Jackson, Mississippi, 5 months ago. And when push comes to shove, guess what's going to happen? I mean, they already have it written that they
right.
work together on, this is back to HB 1020, right?
Right.
They work together, but in certain situations,
Right.
they will have the top decision making.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. Jackson Police Department has to subordinate
So
to the
the
Capitol Police.
Yes, that's the word. And the legislature, and people now, whether they were proxies, but people that don't even live here, writing this legislation
Right.
to install an additional white police chief. Let me say that differently. To install a white police chief in a predominantly black city that's already got its own police department and already got its own police chief.
Right.
They did it anyway.
Yes.
To hell with the people in Jackson. We're going to do it, and you can't stop us.
Right.
And that's what they've done.
And those that are in authority, the police officers and the police chief and others, there's no, when you spoke a word, no voice, they're not saying nothing either.
Nothing.
You know,
Oh, and of course they're appointed.
yes.
He's appointed. He's not on a ballot.
Right.
But the law enforcement officers as well, we fought for years to get decent pay for the law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
But we didn't do that for them to be complacent about what's going on, about them controlling our community. We did that so that they would be able to protect us and defend the rights of us. And this is an aspect of that as well. They need to stand with us and say, no, this is not going to happen.
Community policing
Yes.
takes the interests of the community at heart always,
And
Right.
that's what we're doing.
as they protect and serve.
Yes, that's what our organization is doing as well. Mayor Lumumba said a few years ago that he could not put a police officer in every home. But we said, but we can definitely go to every home and train individuals in there is how to be first responders. And from training them how to be first responders, we will pull from there a group of individuals that would be 10,000 fearless individuals that will go back in the community and control our own community and work with the law enforcement officer and hold them accountable. It starts with us.
And even on that HB 1020, Lumumba was over there at the Capitol when they were discussing that HB 1020, and he came out of there and said there was only one thing missing in that room today, and that was the hoods. They must have left the hoods at home in their closet. He's unapologetic.
Absolutely.
He can call out that paternalistic structure, as you called it earlier.
And he's an attorney.
He knows it well.
But the only problem is he was sitting in the gallery.
Yes.
You know, they didn't ask him to speak. They didn't want to know what he thought about this.
No.
Yeah, it just did not matter.
It's already a foregone conclusion.
Yeah,
they knew what
it
they was
was.
going to do, and they
Right,
did it.
right. The supermajority of the state house, and you know that holds state government. It's like, is this a democracy or what? You know, when it really should be more of a consensus building type situation, because obviously there's so many people that are disenfranchised as a result of the supermajority.
Well, you guys, we got we're up on it. we're running out of time. Any final thoughts or comments?
Well, again, and when we talk about what are some ideas and plans of moving forward, the local organizing committee, one of the projects that we're working on in 2024 is called Freedom Summit 24. And what our objective is to come back to Mississippi and do a 60th anniversary of Freedom Summit 1964. And we're going to shut Mississippi down. Our plans is to shut Mississippi down and run our own candidates. So that way we'll be able to engage the community in civic matters and politics. And we just lost our justice person, O'Connor's. And her passion was to teach civic to the community so they would know what politics and what was and what isn't. And so that is what we're planning to do in 2024 so we can begin to engage our community, because that is what we are all saying right here, is how do we engage our community.
So do you think a mechanism to do that would be to expand the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party?
They're going to be at the table.
Because they are active up there in Holmes County.
Oh, we're sitting at the table with them.
What's that man name?
Charles.
I've talked to him on the phone. But yeah, they've got the main office, and then they've got 5 different localities where they have branches where people are dues-paying members. So he works down here in Jackson, but he lives up there. But anyway, that's a
In
great,
Lexington, yes.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
Boy, that would be beautiful.
Yeah, we're planning to do that. And so definitely, if anybody's interested in it, please call 662-577-1258. That's 662-577-1258.
Wonderful. Maati, any parting thoughts?
Well, congratulations
Yes.
Congratulations to you too.
on our 1-year anniversary here,
Right.
and yeah, let's just keep it going.
That's a great thing. That's a great way.
I'm just honored to be at y'all anniversary.
Yes. Welcome to the party.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We'll be back with you again next Monday night at 6:30, and then we'll be sure to remind you we got a little slowdown. I know we got to look at that calendar because different things going on, and then Christmas is a Monday this year.
Yes.
And so New Year's Day, Monday.
Yes.
So and then
Kwanzaa.
And Kwanzaa in between.
And the one before that,
Right.
the little grandson up there in Virginia, I gotta do some hugging on. So
Yes.
So we'll see you back next Monday night, and we'll review what the holiday plans are, and all that. And thank you so much for joining us. And a special shout out to our producer Chelsea, who's run around at the last minute to get everything right for our special guest, brother Kareem Muhammad. And thank you so much again for joining us.
It was a delight.
Take good care, everybody.